All right, today we are going full-on detective. We're cracking open a financial report to find the story that's hiding inside, behind all the numbers. We're not just crunching data, we're on the hunt for what really makes a business tick. And our subject today is the famous Bombay dyeing. So let's get right into it.
Seriously, think of this as a treasure hunt. Financial reports can seem, boring, but they're actually full of clues. On the surface, a company looks one way, but once you start digging into the data, a totally different picture can emerge. Our mission? Follow the money, connect the dots, and uncover the truth. You ready?
Okay, so first things first. Let's meet the company at the center of this whole investigation. The name itself is our very first clue, and it sets up some pretty big expectations.
There it is in all its official glory, the Bombay Dyeing and Manufacturing Company Limited. That name has some real history to it, doesn't it? It just sounds traditional. It conjures up images of industry, factories, of, making things.
So just based on that name, what pops into your head? Probably dyeing fabrics, right? Manufacturing textiles, maybe selling bed sheets and towels. It seems pretty obvious. But as you're about to see, in the world of business, things are almost never as straightforward as they seem.
And bam, here's our first big twist. When you look inside the report, you find out Bombay Dyeing isn't just one business. It's actually three completely different operations. You've got polyester, which makes sense. You've got retail and textiles, which, we expected that. But then, look at that one in the middle. Real estate. Where'd that come from? This is a huge piece of the puzzle.
Okay, so to understand how these three very different businesses actually work together, our next move is obvious. We have to follow the money. And that journey always starts at the very top of the financial statement with a little thing called revenue.
So what even is revenue? Well, to put it simply, it's all the cash a company brings in the door before any of its bills are paid. It's the big number at the top of the page, which is why people call it the top line. It basically tells us how much stuff the company is selling.
Now, to make this all real, let's zoom in on one specific quarter. In the second quarter of 2019, Bombay Dyeing's total revenue was 555 crore rupees. Now that is a big, impressive number. But the real story, the interesting part, is how that number is actually made up.
So here's the split. That polyester division, it's the biggest slice of the pie, bringing in almost half the money at 48%. Then you have our surprise player, real estate, accounting for a pretty hefty 35%. And finally, the classic retail and textiles business brings in the last 17%. So far, the story kind of fits the name, right? The manufacturing side is bringing in the most cash. But like I said, revenue is only half the story. And this, my friends, is where our investigation takes a sharp turn and gets really interesting. Because bringing money in the door is one thing. Actually keeping it is a whole different ballgame. So it's time to look past that top line and go straight to the bottom line, profit.
You see, profit tells a much deeper story. It's what's left over after you pay for everything, the raw materials, the employees' salaries, the rent, all of it. If revenue is what a company makes, profit is what it actually keeps. This number tells you where the real engine of the company is hiding.
So just to refresh our memory, here's that revenue breakdown again. Polyester was number one, the big sales leader. Real estate was a strong second, and textiles was third. Got that picture in your head? Okay, hold on to it.
And now for the big reveal. Just look at this. The entire picture gets flipped on its head. That real estate division, it generated a mind-blowing 233 crores in profit. Yeah, you heard that right. It actually made more profit than it did revenue that quarter, which is something that can happen when you have, say, a massive property sale. Meanwhile, the textiles business squeaked out a tiny profit. And polyester, the division that brought in the most money, it actually lost 5 crore rupees. Wild.
So let's just let that sink in. The part of the company that was selling the most was also losing money. The entire profitability of Bombay Dyeing, at least in this pretty strong quarter, was propped up almost single-handedly by its real estate division. This is the hidden story we were looking for. But hang on. One good quarter isn't the whole story, right? Business is always changing. So what happens when that massive profit engine, that real estate division, isn't firing on all cylinders? Let's zoom out a little bit. To get the full picture, we need some context. So let's compare that really profitable quarter we just looked at with a not-so-great one from the year before. This is going to show us just how shaky this whole situation can be. Wow, this table tells you everything you need to know.
On the left, our good quarter. On the right, a quarter from late 2018. Now look at the real estate lines. The revenue just collapses from 193 cores all the way down to just 5.6 cores. And the profit? It swings from that massive 233 core gain to a 7-core loss. And look at the effect that had on the entire company. It went from a healthy profit of almost 90 cores to a staggering net loss of over 142 cores.
So what's the takeaway here? Well, a few things. First, that real estate business is incredibly lumpy. It's unpredictable. Huge deals can make one quarter look amazing, but when there are no deals, the whole thing dries up. And second, because those other divisions aren't really making much money, one bad quarter in real estate is enough to plunge the entire company into a massive loss. The fate of Bombay Dyeing is completely tied to this one volatile segment.
Okay, we've followed the clues, we've looked at the evidence, now it's time to step back and put it all together. What is the big picture here? What's the fundamental conflict at the heart of this company?
And this is really the heart of it all. On one side, you have the legacy, the brand, the history, Bombay Dyeing and Manufacturing. It tells a story about textiles. But on the other side, you have the cold, hard financial reality, and the numbers are telling a completely different story. They're telling us that this is a company whose future rises and falls not with the price of cotton, but with the price of land.
So, okay, this is a fascinating story about one company. But what's the lesson for us? Why does digging into the stuff actually matter?
Well, the big takeaway is simple, but it's incredibly powerful. You just can't judge a company by its name. Revenue tells you how busy a company is, sure, but it's the profit that tells you how successful it is. If you really want to understand what makes a business tick, you have to look past the shiny surface and find its true economic engine.
And that leaves us with one last big question to chew on. When a company's public identity is all about its past, but its financial survival depends on a totally different future, what is that company's true identity? Is it the story it tells or the one the balance sheet reveals? It's something to think about. Thanks for coming on this little financial investigation with me.